Senator Rand Paul, I want to talk to you a little bit about foreign policy. You were against going into Iraq. You have written that you aren't as certain about Afghanistan, at least to the extent of should American troops be staying there, rebuilding the country. We're right now seeing titanic events happening in the Middle East. Authoritarian regimes are being overthrown. What role do you believe the United States should be playing in that arena?
I think anytime we talk about foreign policy or things that involve placing our young men and women in harm's way, that we need to be very cautious, that we need to debate this as if it were the most important debate that we'll have, that we should only send our young men and women into harm's way if we're willing to go there ourselves or send our kids into harm's way. And so I think that war is always a last resort. War is something that shows a breakdown of diplomacy, and there will always be wars. There will be hundreds of wars around the world. We have to be wise and judicious and not run headlong into every war.
But what about the events that have been taking place in Tunisia, Egypt, now Libya? When you look at that, what advice would you give your government on what they should do?
Well, for many years, for example, you can make the argument that we have given money to regimes that have been anti-democratic and haven't really shown great respect for human rights. Mubarak, we probably gave him $70 billion over a 30-year period, much of which was pocketed himself. He's been living under emergency regulations that stifle speech, political organization, and voting. So you could argue that the backlash that's occurring now and the instability now was created by a policy where we kept in power someone who wasn't allowing democracy within his country. So you can argue sometimes that getting too involved by picking winners and losers in all of these countries ends up having some blowback or having some repercussions that were unintended.
But what do you do about that now? What's your advice on what your government, if anything, should do on the situation, say, in Libya?
I don't know if there is an answer as to what we can do. I think ultimately Libya will decide who their leaders will be, the same way Egypt will decide, or Tunisia. And you could say, we want to send troops in, but I say to people who want to send troops and be involved in every civil war around the world that they have to be willing to go themselves and send their children. There's also a question ultimately, we're borrowing $2 trillion a year. I'm not sure we can afford to be involved in every civil war around the world anymore.